And we're back. This is Nada Milkovich, your host for this week's Artist on Art. Today is April 9th. And we just had a great talk with Jean A. Felice II. He was talking about his project in the Danham graduating exhibition coming up. Undercurrents is what it's called, happening May 1st through the 4th. 2014, and in the Digital Arts Research Center here at UCSC. Preview weekend, folks. This is when you want to come because I know it's going to be a crowded exhibition. April 26th and 27th is when you want to go to the preview weekend. That'll be 12 to 5 in the dark department. And then the public reception, the big shindig where you won't really get to see much of the art, but you'll have a really good party. That'll be Thursday, May 1st, 6 to 9. And then that's also when we give the awards and the thank yous, and again, May 1st, what a great day. And this year's exhibition called Undercurrents, for I think a very good, well-named exhibition, and luckily we'll get to talk to most of the Danham graduates this year. But right now, up next is Danielle Williamson. Danielle is a filmmaker. We met first. You were filming Beth and Annie here on campus, and she is here to talk about her thesis project and work called Go as a River. It's a media projection installation that views the San Lorenzo River as a source of many histories, which it is, and you have interviews, you've interviewed community members, and you'll also have a preview of that on April 17th, is that right? For Bloom?
19th.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, again, at Bloom? Yeah? You want to talk about that for a second, Jean? No?
Sure.
Okay.
With Bloom?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's April 19th again. That's going to be 6 to 11 at Lighthouse Point. We're going to have over a dozen artists and half a dozen different local ocean and water advocacy groups. And so come on out. It's going to be a great time.
So, Danny, you are going to have a piece in that. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure.
Is it the San Lorenzo? Is it the...
Yeah, so my piece, Go as a River, is video about... it's actually just a close-up of the river meant as a meditative process to... excuse me, also listen to these collected interviews that I have of people talking about the recollections beside the river. But yes, it will be playing at Bloom. It's meant to be a public screening, public installation that people can come along and view. So,
will it be projected onto the lighthouse?
It won't be at the lighthouse. That's a separate thing. My piece will actually be projected on a rock face.
Yeah, on one of the cliffs.
Facing the San Lorenzo River, so that there's a little bit of a nod to the river. But yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. Like, you'll have the ocean on one side, and you'll have my projection on the rock face on the other side.
Of a river.
Yeah.
Mixing our elements. So, Danielle, what got you interested in looking at the river?
Well, I used to live in Seabright, and I had to cross the San Lorenzo every day to get to campus. And it was a mix of that and thinking about, like, I wonder how many times people cross this river and actually think about it as, like, a source of our water, as a place where other creatures are living. And so it was a mix of that. And speaking with Matt, we were talking about, like, these plans for a pending desalination facility and just the state of our water quality and quantity as a whole. And so I wanted to approach this project more from, like, a community-oriented aspect, because I don't, as someone who has only lived in Santa Cruz for a year and a half, I'm not an expert on the river. So I wanted to hear what other people were saying and thinking about the river.
That's wonderful. And so where do you come from?
I'm originally from Illinois, Northern Illinois.
Oh, another Midwestern situation there. I'm from Indiana.
All right.
Forgot that.
Yeah.
So
Sorry,
you
Matt.
came as a filmmaker, though, right?
Pardon?
You came as a filmmaker dealing with interpersonal relations and relationships to technology?
Yeah. So I have my bachelor's from Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, which was...
Great art school.
I love it. I'm miss it. It was a really unique opportunity because it's one of the few schools that still shoots on celluloid. So a lot of my work was very do-it-yourself, experimental hand processing with Super 8mm 16. So I come from this very
old school filmmaking.
Yeah.
And you came here.
And
No, you went somewhere else, didn't you?
Well, I traveled a bit. I worked on a few films in New York and St. Louis, and then I took an Amtrak out to the West Coast. I was decided it was time to, get away from the Midwest for a little bit, and then I moved to San Francisco. And while I was moving, I was applying to grad schools, and I came to Danum.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Her show, project, Danielle's project is called Go as a River. Tell us more about who you interviewed and how did you find those people?
Sure. Well, we did a lot of research first. We were talking to environmental lawyers and the Desal Alternatives group, and also just going to a lot of events around the river. And so, I've just gone out and through word of mouth sort of was introduced to a lot of people who either live by the river, people that I've met at these events that had something that they felt like they wanted to say about the river.
And what was the most interesting, some of the most interesting aspects that you were surprised to hear?
I don't know if I was necessarily surprised by what people were saying, more just a lot of people expressed their wants and desires to be able to spend more time by the river, and that they still viewed it as a place of healing, I guess. That is one interview that sticks out to me, is that people would like to go down by the river to think or to have a picnic or, to play in the river. And
we're lucky. I mean, we're blessed here in the Santa Cruz area and hills because there are so many great places that you can go to that are public, accessible. And so anything else? People coming down to heal, people wanting to take care of it, people...
Yeah. And I guess just not realizing that it's connected to our watershed and that a lot of our water does actually come from the San Lorenzo.
Really?
Yeah.
For who? How does that work out?
How does, that the water goes through our system and that it goes into our homes.
I see. It's just here in Santa Cruz, we get ours from Loch Lomond. And so I'm saying Loch Lomond is fed by the San Lorenzo, or it's this, yes. Matthew says yes. Matthew is our watershed expert. We're going to the ocean, to the river, to the watershed.
Right, and it's all connected there.
Well, yeah. So you are going to be showing again April 19th at Bloom.
Right.
As soon as it's dark, probably the Go as a River will be projected onto a rock. And how long is your... Well, okay, let's talk about the exhibition, Undercurrents. And so May 1st, and although preview April 26th and 27th, folks, you'll be able to see it in the dark.
Yes. So it's actually... May 1st is an interesting day because we have quite a few events scheduled. So my piece will actually be screened in two locations, one being behind the dark building underneath a bridge, which was the original location that it would be screening. So this very site-specific thing will be kind of emulated by projecting underneath the bridge behind the dark.
And that's May 1st?
Yeah, and that's going to happen around 9 o'clock, I believe, my specific screening. It's only a 7 to 8 minute loop. I'm still finishing editing it, but it'll be a video that's on loop that people can come and interact with as long or as little time that they want. And
how many people are in this? I know you're still editing.
Yeah, I would say there's 15 to 20 people involved right now. Yeah.
Who are going to be, you'll be able to see their face?
No, it's all the interviews are audio.
Ah, that's right.
And the video that you're focusing on is more of a meditative experience. It's like rippling river footage.
And where did you get the rippling river footage?
I just shot that myself.
Right, but I mean, we're on the river. Because I know the river so well. I want to be
sure, really close to the mouth. by the Lost Boys Bridge. I went out at dawn and I did some shooting, and so it's like this beautiful, like, reflective moment at like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, that's wonderful. You're listening to KZSC Santa Cruz. You're listening to Artist on Art. I've got Danielle Williamson talking about her work, Go as a River. She's a filmmaker, media artist who is graduating this June, of course. No hopes, of course. And we're talking about the DANM department, the Digital Arts and New Media. This is some kind of my favorite part of the year because I get to talk to all these digital artists about their work. So what was, let's say, one of the most interesting things that you learned about the river?
I guess when I moved here, I didn't realize like how far up it went, and I guess just thinking about one interviewee said, like, it runs through the middle of our town, and anything, like, everything's all connected, right? So whatever is being put into that or taken from that is going to affect everything. So I guess just thinking about, like, we're talking about scale, going from like something really small to something really large, and how everything has an effect on one thing or the other.
Well, I believe the Harrisons would like to call that systemic thinking, and that you're looking at the system, right, of, Matthew's going to be talking more about the entire watershed system, but for you it's the river system. And the river, it goes through quite a few towns, because it goes through Boulder Creek, it goes through Ben Lomond, Felton, and then of course it goes through Santa Cruz, but it all comes from these hills, these mountains, that it trickles down into streams and into rivers. And then did you get to go to Loch Lomond? Did you?
I have, yeah.
It's closed right now.
Yeah.
Oh, it's closed. I see.
But I have been taking trips up to Felton, Boulder Creek, which is really funny because I actually tried to get access to videotape other parts of the river, and a lot of it is really hard to get to because of private property. So I wasn't able to see as much of the river as I would have liked.
Right. And so you've been told about all of the different conservation methods that they've been doing and eliminating. So when I first came here, they eliminated the dams up the rivers because the salmon were unable to spawn up them. Or, yeah, they come up to spawn.
Right.
And so it's incredible. Now you can go in the spring and see the salmon coming up the river, which in the 90s you couldn't see at all. So did you hear about that at all? Did people talk about how it's had a bit of a revival? I know Matthew might say something different to that.
Yeah.
I'll wait my turn.
I think he's got a lot more to say. But when I was interviewing people, some were making comments on, and at least talking specifically about the portion of the river that's in downtown Santa Cruz, like that the only kind of life that they're seeing is the ducks or other birds that are around, but that there is like so they were kind of talking more about this portion of town specifically.
Right, because the river does go through many changes.
Yeah.
Through it.
Yeah.
And so your other work has been dealt with interpersonal relations.
Yeah.
And so this is a little bit of a departure from that, or?
I would say to do something a little bit more environmentally focused, or I guess also kind of socially focused, has been slightly different. A lot of the work that I've done in the past definitely has a more kind of formal tone to it because I'm working like with my hands on celluloid, but there is a bit of film you'll see in this piece as well, kind of trying to bridge the gap between the digital and the celluloid.
And how have you had a bridge? I mean, how do you bridge analog and digital?
So I'm working on that with my collaborator Lisa Banks. That's a side project onto our thesis projects. But we made a piece called 2.5D Exquisite Corpse in 2.5D, which is something that she shot digital wireframing, and I did on celluloid, and we kind of compiled the two together as a way to encourage a conversation between the two mediums rather than have them pitted against each other.
Right.
So,
which is what it is.
Yeah. So that's something that we're still working on, like the virtual and the materiality of the celluloid.
So Danielle, after this is done, will people be able to see will you have it available on the internet? Will you do another public showing?
I'd like to do both. Yeah, it'll definitely be on my website.
What's your website?
DanielleWilliamson.com.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's with two L's. DanielleWilliamson.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I plan to stay in Santa Cruz for another year, and I'm looking for other like river water related events that I can. I'll be showing the documentation of my piece at one of the Museum of Art and History pop-up museums. I believe that's May 10th. But I'd like to do more public screenings. I'd like to get it out there, and part of the idea of the public screening is that people are coming together to have conversations about the river.
That's wonderful. We're going to take a quick break, and then we've got up next Matthew Jamieson, and we're going to be talking about the watershed. You're listening to Artist on Art.